私たち前にも会ったことありませんか？そうなの？
Yeah, it's probably best not to think too hard about this, or really any toy franchise canonicity. Our film opened rather ominously with Sora being forced to watch as the world around her began to fall apart. And before we could even say what the f***, we were plopped right into the plot with Sora alone in an empty field, attacked by a shadowy creature, and rescued by Manatsu and Yui, all within just the first minute or so. Yeah, kind of goes without saying, and putting aside some of that obvious nostalgia pandering, this film's pacing, especially in this first act, was objectively very fast, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as we'll explain over the course of this review. Though one of the immediate benefits was of course that we were getting right into the action, in a very Nishiki Toka-esque opening sequence based on the multiple shifting camera angles, all the while the film's catchy as all hell opening by Ami Ishii and Machiko played. It was pretty damn tight, though really the best part was the fact that this song was titled 4F, which yeah, I'll let you be creative with that.
Fun! 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 I'm having fun!
During this sequence, they also very effectively established each of the other split-off teams that we'd be following. Each one was named after a member of the Hirogara Sky team because current team and all that, so they gotta push them. God knows that the actual show isn't going to do that. And kind of wisely, they also included these name cards for each of the non-Hirogara Sky Cures, and even the fairy partners, which, unlike a certain other show, is kind of needed for anyone fairly new to this franchise, as the oldest series referenced, at least in this first act of the film, was from 2015. It would also play into something pretty clever a little later, but for now, we had to leave Team Sky with, of course... I say we eat Yui first before she eats us. Meanwhile, Team Prison hadn't even started to form yet, so Mashu and Laura had to break the ice. Well, if you're looking for your husband, he does appear later in the film. The two quickly make contact with Amane, and the film's resident mascot character slash future Cure audition, Puka, lean to the main comedy bow of this film, which makes sense with this group of weirdos. And while this was very well animated, I think I'm getting some Ken Ueno vibes from it, it was also very hard to take seriously when the baddies were freaking Naruto running. We also got the most random ensemble with Team Wing, and kind of Sora Majesty, yeah, more on that later. But yeah, it consisted of Tsubasa, El, Kotoa, Saya, and Haruka. No, not that one. Also, of course she'd be the one to provide the fight scene for this team because Go Princess will always be the Sakuga season. Lastly, Team Butterfly consisted of all the Cures who could qualify for a driver's license, with two of them actually owning vehicles. It also featured one of the more needless, though not necessarily bad subplots of this film, with Yukari refusing to be a team player. She's just thirsting for her husbando. Seriously, I actually thought about that jokingly, but then later in the film, well... The team comedy trio made their way through the desert, and yeah, I don't care how much karate you practice, Amane, you should be the hottest in this group in that outfit. Fortunately, a literal oasis was just kind of there in the desert, along with the last member of their little hodgepodge team. Yeah, and for some reason, you kind of remind me of her. Oh, in what way? Oh, just something. Just saying, it would have been both hilarious and kind of tragic if Nodoka had stumbled upon this theme thinking that she had found her partner. Now, that's not to say that these scenes didn't have good character moments at all, because they definitely did. From little bits like Laura and Amane playing in the background, to them playing out their next course of action, in which each of them managed to provide their own thoughts that matched up with their established personalities, it was all engaging stuff, especially if you're familiar with these characters. Though, with that in mind, what do you get when you ask three idiots to try and screw in a light bulb? Hey, if it helps some random plumber make $1 billion, why not? Jokes and very overused catchphrases aside, the lead Cures did have arguably the best Cure exchange of this whole film, with the two vets giving the new kid on the block some surprisingly practical advice to calm Sora down over wanting to reunite with the rest of her actual team. It both highlighted their characters and the overarching themes of their respective series. Yes, all three of the shows suffer from some serious issues with the execution of their themes, but at least they got them across here. That said, this is the only 3-member team so far, so they really needed one more. I'm pretty sure this is what the Forspoken devs thought they were making. But yeah, hey look everyone, it's Kier Supreme. You know, from VR Precure. Yeah, you know that one show that also tried to be like Xade. Don't remember her? Well, clearly you just have a bad memory. Okay, but seriously, the name card was actually a pretty clever and kind of funny way of hinting that something might have been a little bit off with this chick. You know, aside from the fact that she named herself Preem and she only really had decent drip. Anyway, we also got low-key my favorite scene in this film, when Sora opened up her hero journal, and we got to see both her amazing Sakuga hands, and a reminder of the best part of Hirogar Sky.
おかわりする米？
いらないよ。
Oh, no, she actually does want a second serving, she just doesn't want to have to deal with a little Deus Ex Machina right there. Again, I was only kidding at first, but considering how this film plays out, yeah, that was probably exactly what she was thinking. Meanwhile, Team Wing's interactions were mostly the most straightforward, with them mostly talking about their current and future goals. Not bad stuff, though come on Haruka, you've had like 9 years to figure this stuff out already, girl. Honestly, I mostly just appreciate the subtle Iruma-kun connection they made here with the best ship of that show. Meanwhile, Team Butterfly's issues, aka Yukari's angst, was rather abruptly dropped. That said, I'm also not for needlessly protracting character angst, and this bit of Lala and Yukari reconciling was sweet. They also subtly hinted at something being off and yet also familiar about this isekai when they hung out at a familiar-looking leg-soaking hot spring and saw a hill that, well, we already made that joke. It was certainly a lot more subtle than just having the food trucks from across the franchise just parked out in the middle of nowhere. Also, did the lead Gears raid those cooking tools from them? Team Prism probably had the most significant developments when they stumbled upon a train in the middle of nowhere, as well as an old friend. Mashiro, why did your voice suddenly get higher? Also, I'm pretty sure Shinji Ikari is in the next car over, again considering what happens later in this film. On that note, Puka revealed that there was a little more to the little critter. And yet, the team was perfectly cool with having their one mode of transportation disintegrated by this mysterious bunny they just met. Yeah, y'all know there's a difference between being chill and not having any sense of self-preservation, just saying. Whatever, it led to a fun little montage of each of the teams working together to get to the same location in the center of the world. Yeah, much like a classic RPG, the heroes were trying to make their way to the Demon King's castle, which seemed to belong to a guy named Ark, according to his shadow minions. Damn it, I just wanted to be a part of a mid-Kamen Rider film, but still, come on! It was all well done, especially since it had no dialogue, and thus they had to rely entirely on visual storytelling to get across how each of these hodgepodge teams were managing to get along, except for Preem. Yeah, again, I wonder if there's a Judas amongst these teams. Anyway, they all eventually made it to the city surrounding Ark's castle, and in keeping with the RPG theme, everyone else was an NPC. Thus, Team Sky and Prism were mostly delighted to see each other. Yeah, unfortunately, none of Nodoka's teammates were present, and Preem wasn't exactly happy to see the mascot who kind of shared her color scheme.
いるの。
Okay, could someone tell the Boomer Elf to stop destroying the world? And yet, once again, Team Prism were way too chill like the dog in the burning house, and didn't mind that Puka was sending them to hell, and just told Team Sky to meet them at the castle.
大丈夫。
Don't worry, she's used to being the magical girl who perishes every time. Fortunately, Team Sky managed to rendezvous with Butterfly, and they just went straight to the Demon King's front door. And this was where I would say the pace of the movie was just a little too fast, as the three teams managed to rendezvous again in just about 5 minutes after that traumatic little separation. Though, I probably wouldn't complain as much if it weren't for the fact that this bit of Sora and Mashiro was obvious trailer fodder. I mean, come on, y'all should at least milk those Yuri reunions a little more is all I'm saying. Again, not too big a deal, as we at least did get some more good action scenes in between, just kind of wanted to point that out. Anyway, it was time for the final battle.
返事くらいしなさいよ。
Damn it, did someone fill with the in-game clock? Look, you should at least try to defeat the end before you use that cheat. No, and also Team Wing match to arrive. I'm guessing after everyone else did the work for them. But of course, the fight wasn't completely over. And Goyan, is that you? No, wait. It was Preem revealing that she was the real final boss.
What a surprise.
Yep, as Yukari and Asumi managed to put together based on seeing architecture from their respective settings, the world was a decade-esque amalgamation of all of their worlds, and Preem was the love child between Tsukasa and Sogo. Well, that and maybe a little bit of Lilith. Oh, was it time for the fourth impact already? Also, apparently, we actually missed out on an entire All-Stars film as Supreme managed to defeat all the Cures and just snapped away the entire Earth. Damn it, so we missed the Infinity War and now we're just skipping to the inferior Endgame? Yeah, I don't care what anyone else says, that movie was kind of overhyped. Fortunately, that's not entirely the case with this film, as, well, yes, the twist of Supreme being the actual villain was legit way too predictable. The twist about her being an eldritch abomination that managed to handily wipe out the Precure beforehand was a good twist, and actually went a long way in establishing the threat she posed at the cost of barely any runtime. Yeah, as I just said, the pace of this movie is very fast, but not necessarily rushed other than the team reunion that we just talked about. As a result, it did allow the story to become densely yet effectively packed in, with us even learning that apparently after essentially winning and rather than just moving on to her next planet, Supreme did at least somewhat acknowledge the power of its enemies, which then grew into an envy that wasn't even really about powers, but rather their identities. Yeah, Supreme basically became a Precure fan, and thus created her own Precure OC, as well as her own enemy faction, which, great to Cthulhu-chan here, she at least bothered to make Ark look imposing, as opposed to Baldy. She had also created Puka with her own powers, just to emulate the fairy partners that have been around since the beginning of the franchise. And considering that beginning included Mepple, and this movie was written by Jin Tanaka, I wonder if this was a bit more of a cynical jab at the little plushies.
まるで役に立たない。
Jin Tanaka, the eternal troll of this franchise. But yeah, kinda by default, Supreme was absolutely the strongest Dark Precure ever, and an example of how truly pointless the pursuit of absolute power was, as he would likely only leave you an empty, lonely shell that could never understand things like what really made the Precures great heroes. A Dark Precure who let her powers go to her head and warped her ideals of heroism. They really should do something like that for the main series, shouldn't they? Though, as for why exactly such a random assortment of cures other than the Hirogara Sky team were able to just return after Supreme snapped her wings,
I don't know.
like, maybe her desire to learn more about the Precure materialized them back, or maybe the cures revived themselves with some pure willpower. I mean, one of them is Hibiki Tachibana, so it's possible Norika covered for all of them. Yeah, I'm just kind of theorizing at this point, and it doesn't really matter all that much for this particular film, at least. Don't get me wrong, I would absolutely go for a film that doesn't force me to raise more than a few questions, but I also can't deny the epic spectacle here. And unlike the main series that was airing at the time of this film, it actually did have a feeling of some well-earned drama when Supreme picked off all of the remaining cures, leaving only Sora, Masho, and L. This would lead to the original duo of this team having a great exchange that I actually kind of wish we could have gotten in their main series about the responsibilities they had as hero girls and, of course, Precure. That said, though, isn't it just kind of odd how Elle hasn't transformed into Majesty yet? You'd almost think that she was never planned to be in this movie because she was also never supposed to debut in the main series as early as she did, but they just wanted to get her toy out quicker, but that can't be the case, am I right? Yes, she does appear a couple minutes later, after Sora and Masho had gone for one last stand against Supreme, which just raises the question, why didn't she join them in the first place? Yes, she cheered Puka into joining the fight, which just makes me believe that the rejected mascot was supposed to come in here instead of L. Toy, crazy idea here, but you ever think to just let your writers cook and not constantly go into the kitchen complaining? Again, not too big a deal for this film, and more just an issue with the main series, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, as it turned out, the little fairy wasn't just a creature of destruction, but also creation. Yeah, basically she had cosmic level alchemy and just needed a proper image for reconstruction. And of course, for this universe centered around a bunch of magical girls, that meant looking back at some famous scenes across the Precure franchise. Yeah, this part of the film was basically a big clip show, but honestly, I didn't mind it, as it did highlight some of, not all of the best moments across this franchise. I mean, I do like this scene they chose for Hero Sky, but I think Mana slapping herself would have made for a much better choice for the Doki Doki moment, and honestly, I don't even remember the scene from Swede, and for Yes 5, well...
夢を叶えたら自信が持てる気がする。そしたらきっと
And the bird app is going crazy again. Also, the miracle lights were here, but at least they weren't stealing screen time to encourage or explain how to use them, especially post-COVID. Anyway, the memories start to bring in all of the lead cures who were conveniently around to record their greetings for the Hero Sky credits. And eventually, all of the cures managed to rejoin the fight, making Supreme realize the true power of the Precure that Kitaleski figured out a long time ago.
仲間が多ければ強いんだろ。
そういうことじゃないよ。
I don't know, for certain seasons, it does feel like much of the cast are just NPCs, not naming a name, Smashiro. But yeah, final battle time, and here's a fun little game. It's called Where's Marine? Yeah, even though she's not even voice acted, Erika still tried to take every opportunity to steal the scene, including this one Yu Yoshiyama cut. Like, good lord girl, what are you doing to poor Pegaton? But yeah, and unlike All-Stars Memories, this film didn't try to break the bank for the voice actor budget, and instead just kept it to the featured cures, all the pinks, Akira just to make Yukari happy, and Minami just so that they could have this little connection with Laura. That last one might seem insignificant, but believe me, I have friends who went crazy over just those 3 lines from Minami. And of course, they brought in a bunch of other cameos, including the real First Metal Cures, the cheap knockoffs, the unfunny comedians, the Boomer King Daddy, all of the legendary cures, and Cure Tomorrow? But wasn't Hagutan amongst the fairies and,
You've created a time paradox!
But yeah, on top of even more amazing Sakuga from way too many talented key animators to list, and a great insert song called All for One Forever by most of the Precure singers across the franchise, there was a ton of Easter eggs here that I can't list all here without making this video another hour longer, so I suggest you just go watch it for yourself because it is amazing. The main takeaways were that Supreme decided to go from Ava to Gren Lagann and tried to crush the smaller creatures, including Puka, under her foot and fist, but the little one got some support from the other fairy cures, resulting in... Yep, was saving that Anya reference for just that occasion. And after one last, less impressive CGI All-Stars punch, Supreme was defeated and reduced back down to just Preem. And with that, the film just kind of ended with all of the cures inviting the defeated god and her pet out for lunch.
ここからもう一度
Also, maybe you should consider changing your outfit a little, but we'll save that for another day. Because for now, this film was a really fantastic spectacle. I say that because, other than the setup for Supreme and her motivations, this film was actually pretty light when it came to the story, but it did go full ham on some admittedly amazing fight scenes, great music, and yeah, just some pure undiluted love for this franchise. In that sense, and while it doesn't dethrone DX3 as my personal favorite crossover film, it is the Precure movie I'm probably going to rewatch the most, just for that amazing Sakuga, so for that, I think it deserves this shot a lot more than Hirogaru Sky's finale. For me, after being kind of burnt out on this franchise after one disappointing series after another, this was at least the oasis in the desert. I mean, just from a pure technical standpoint, it's no surprise why this film managed to be one of the few to pass the billion-yen mark, but also overtook All-Stars Memory for the highest grossing film in the franchise. These animators just went all out on the action scenes, and even on some of the more somber moments like Sora's frickin' hands. The music went through the gambit of emotions from sad, joyous, and sorry real days. Yes, even as a Gren Lagann fan, I do kind of put this near the final battle with the anti-spirals. Not quite up there, partially because of the bad CGI, but definitely close, and even then, the plethora of Easter eggs in this final fight justified multiple viewings. Which is good, because from a pure story standpoint, there isn't a whole lot to dig into here. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing particularly wrong with it, but other than the stuff involving Supreme and her engaging motivations of wanting to understand what made the Precure strong, it actually does play out like a basic-ass RPG, with the characters just moving from one really nice-looking level to the next. Though to be fair, that was probably the point, as they just wanted to jump from one set piece to the next. Thus, we did get plenty of action scenes and a few slower character moments, and while they didn't all work out, like the Lala Yukari subplot just kind of resolving itself after just a few minutes, others like the meeting of the lead Cures was surprisingly insightful, especially considering the members involved. That said, yeah, I still think Deluxe 3 was better at balancing the stuff out. It didn't have quite as many action scenes, and yet it still had more impact because we did spend time seeing each of the films split off teams get to know and work off each other in meaningful ways. Not to mention, as interesting as Supreme's motivations were, fighting a horrific amalgamation of all of the Precure's previous final bosses up until that point in the franchise did hold a little more meaning than an eldritch abomination just coming out of nowhere. Puka, while a bit more of a plot device than anything else, was a fine enough supporting character who learned how to stand up for herself and even become a Precure, and her final resolution with Preem was nice enough. And overall, that's kind of the thing. When you watch those flashbacks to all of those famous scenes from the past, you'll realize that this is all just kind of more of a celebration of the franchise. It's all about watching these magical girls overcoming the more nihilistic views of their enemies and bringing a more comforting hope for the future. In many ways, this movie accomplishes those themes better than any other in the franchise. It's still not my overall favorite, but again, like the final fight with the anti-spirals, I think I'm just gonna clip out that final battle with Supreme just to watch it for my pleasure whenever I feel like I need a pick-me-up. Nothing else much needs to be said other than just keep charging forward Precure towards that future full of furries. Thank you for watching what will at least close out our Precure reviews on a high note. I mean, we will still cover the first month of Wonderful just to see if it can change my mind, but after that, we'll likely switch over to shorts and batch reviews in order to make room for other anime that we want to cover. Regardless, I hope y'all will stick with us even as we start changing things up. And until then though, farewell for now my friends, and what's with that music and... Damn it, who spilled the tang again?